In 2015, scientists discovered something that should have rewritten history books. Approximately 5,000 years ago, a population exploded out of Russia and replaced 90% of the male population of Western Europe in just 500 years. But here's what nobody's talking about. This happened at the exact date the Bible says the Tower of Babel occurred. And your DNA reveals which side of that divide your ancestors were on. I'm about to show you something geneticists have been documenting for the last decade, but nobody's connecting to ancient texts. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the Tower of Babel wasn't about pride, it was about power, how two populations dispersed at the same exact moment in opposite patterns, why your genetics predict which type of religion your ancestors developed, and what Genesis means when it says, "Let us go down," plural, not singular. This isn't speculation. This is peer-reviewed genetics confirming what ancient texts describe. Let's start with what we know for certain. Around 3300 BCE, that's 5300 years ago, a culture called the Yamnaya appeared suddenly on the grasslands between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. Not gradually, suddenly, with bronze metallurgy, domesticated horses, wheeled vehicles, and an organized society, all appearing at once in an archaeological record. When scientists extracted DNA from the burial sites, they found unique genetic markers, haplogroups R1a and R1b. Remember those letters. Then, around 3000 BC, just 300 years after they appeared, something triggered a massive dispersal. One group carrying R1b moved west into Europe. By 2500 BCE, they had reached Britain, and when they arrived, 90% of the male population was replaced in just 500 years. Meanwhile, a second group carrying R1a moved east. They passed through the steppes and by 1500 BCE arrived in India, calling themselves Aryans. And here's the kicker. When geneticists tested India's caste system, they found the Brahmin priestly class had 14 times more R1a genetics than the indigenous population, a genetic advantage preserved 3,500 years through rigid social hierarchy. Now here's the question. What caused two populations to explode from the same region at the same moment, becoming ruling elites everywhere they went? And why does this happen at exactly 3000 BCE, the exact date biblical scholars placed the Tower of Babel? Perhaps the Tower of Babel story isn't what you think. Genesis 11:7 says, "Let us go down and there confound their language." Us, plural, not "I will go down," us. The ancient Mesopotamian texts, which predate Genesis, are explicit, gods, plural, working with humanity, and they name two in particular. Enlil, supreme commander, strict, hierarchical, control-focused, and Enki, the chief of wisdom, knowledge giver, empowerment focused, and counsel oriented. Two gods, two approaches, two populations. By 3000 BCE, something happens in Mesopotamia. Genesis 11:6 records what the divine council sees. "Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and now nothing will be restrained from them." Read that again. Nothing will be restrained from them. This isn't about divine jealousy. This is recognition that unified humanity has become too powerful to control. The solution? Let us go down and confound their language, fragment them, break their unity, scatter them regionally. Genesis describes this as disaster because the Semitic peoples, those carrying the J haplogroups, are the ones writing the story about their own scattering. But watch what happens immediately after. The god associated with the steppe populations, those R1a and R1b carriers, launches the most dramatic expansion in human history. West to Europe, 90% male replacement. East to India becomes the Vedic elite. What one divine authority scattered defensively, another expanded offensively. Same moment, two gods, opposite outcomes. Now here's what makes this undeniable. Every population with R1A or R1B genetics speaks Indo-European languages and developed pantheon religions. The Greeks, the Romans, Norse, Hindus, celebrating multiple gods, divine councils, and heroes becoming semi-divine. Every population with the J haplogroup speaks Semitic languages and evolved towards strict monotheism. Hebrews, Arabs, you shall have no other gods before me, rejecting the divine council entirely. Why? Because they had fundamentally different experiences with divine authority. J populations experienced control and scattering at Babel. Their response? Reject all gods. Go straight to the source. Moses said, I am that I am. Muhammad said, there is no God but God. And Jesus said, the kingdom is within you. Our populations experienced empowerment and expansion. Their response? Celebrate the gods who enabled their conquest. Preserve divine council memories, but also find the source beyond them. Different divine experiences equal different religious responses. Your DNA predicts which traditions your ancestors developed. This is not coincidence. Look, I know this challenges everything you've been taught, but here's what's undeniable. The genetics. Two populations dispersed from the same regions around 3000 BCE. Peer-reviewed, published, proven. The ancient texts. Divine council using us and two gods named Enlil and Enki, a conflict at Babel. This is what Mesopotamian and biblical texts actually describe. And the correlation? Well, genetics predict language. Genetics predict religion. Perfectly. No exceptions. The evidence is real. The pattern is systematic. And what it means is, that's interpretation. If this blew your mind, hit subscribe. If you want a deep dive on all the evidence, the full 20-minute breakdown is coming soon. The genetics reveal which divine experience your ancestors had. But the source? That's accessible to everybody.